Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. This evening, we are having a special guest from the United States of America. Christian Stepien is the Chief Technical Officer of the NUFORC, the National UFO Reporting Center, and he will tell us what it is and what it does. Christian, the screen is yours. The microphone is yours.
All right. Well, thanks for the introduction, Edoardo, and it's a pleasure to be here. And it's really nice to present to all of you guys from on the other side of the ocean. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen here. Well, welcome everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about the National UFO Reporting Center, and feel free at any time to interrupt, ask questions, dig in deeper on anything you'd like to know. I was kind of planning on talking for maybe a half hour or so, and then we can just go into general Q&A back and forth, whatever you guys want to talk about. So we've been around for a while. We're actually formed in 1974. So in October of 74, we're still technically in our 50th year. And we're celebrated a big anniversary, and we hope to be around in another 50 years. So a little bit of the history of NUFORC. Back in when Project Blue Book shut down and the Condon Committee did their nonsense, and kind of the government involvement in UFOs trailed off back in the late 60s and the early 70s. There was a firefighter in Seattle, Washington named Bob Gribble, and that's a picture of Bob there answering the red hotline, who got the idea. He was a Washington State MUFON member, and he got the idea to start the National UFO Reporting Center. And what he literally did was he printed rolls of red stickers that said, they were about 3 inches by 2 inches. They said National UFO Reporting Center on them, and had a phone number, 206-722-3000. And he mailed these stickers along with a letter to all of the law enforcement agencies, all of the airports, all the FAA regional offices, air traffic control centers that he could think of. And sure enough, it worked. These people took that sticker, stuck it by their phone, and when somebody reported a UFO or saw something, the calls started flooding in. So from 74 to 94, Bob pretty much ran the hotline, took a lot of mainly reports over the phone. Reports were also mailed in, and he kept a big filing system of all that stuff, and recorded a lot. You can actually go on our website on the data bank, and you can listen to some of Bob's calls where he talked to some of the witnesses from back in that time frame. And it became pretty much the de facto place to report UFOs, along with organizations like MUFON and some of the other civilian organizations that were working at the time. So after 20 years of this, Bob had basically had enough, and in 1994, I was working at GTE in Seattle, and I had just started getting involved with the Washington State MUFON group. And Bob approached Peter Davenport, who is the gentleman in the blue shirt in this photo, and basically asked him if he'd like to take over. And Peter said, sure. And he's been the director ever since. So this was kind of a little get together between Peter again in the blue shirt. That's me, what I look like back in the day, in the black shirt, and Bob Gribble standing behind us with his wife. And we've basically been running the center ever since. So pretty widely known out there. We get a lot of reports, and the reason we do is, I think, because of a lot of the groundwork that Bob did back in the day. And to this day, we are still probably the most recommended place, the most recommended civilian organization to report UFOs to. Couple things I got on the screen here. This is the FAA order that basically tells pilots where to report UFOs if they've seen them, and it specifically references the National UFO Reporting Center. This is the official FAA document. This is a reference guide that was recently put out just last year by the Major City Joint Chiefs Association, which is a group of law enforcement, kind of a professional organization for police chiefs and things like that. And they also recommend the National UFO Reporting Center. As far as the general public goes, if you go to Google and type in "where do I report a UFO," you'll typically see us pop out right at the top under any paid advertising that's going on, and there's some of that going on these days. If you ask AI, things like ChatGPT, "where do I report a UFO?" it will pretty much send you to the National UFO Reporting Center. So it's pretty easy for people to find us, and that's why we continue to this day to get, massive volumes of reports coming in every day. What do we do? It's pretty much what our title says. We take UFO reports. We take reports over the hotline, and Peter still answers the hotline to this day. He's been answering it for 30 years, and I've joked with Peter, he's probably talked to more UFO witnesses than any other person on the planet, simply because he gets, something like anywhere from 20 to 50 calls a day coming into that hotline. We also have the online report form. This is really where Peter refers people to actually, if they call the hotline, to go in and file a report, or people find us online and they can fill out a report, with all the standard information, date, time, duration. We have a lot of check boxes about characteristics of the report. Was it moving? Did it shut down your cell phone? Were there entities seen? All kinds of pieces of data that we collect. So what happens is those reports come into the center, and at this point, I am actually manually reviewing every one of them, watching every video, looking at every photo, and we classify them. So we kind of break them into categories of, is it something we can easily identify? Something like it's a Starlink rocket launch or Starlink satellite train or something like that. Is it something that is not easily identifiable? Is it something that we consider anomalous? Something like a bright light in the sky that suddenly makes a right angle turn and jolts off and, at instantaneous speeds. And then we also have a group that we classify as kind of our best reports. And if you go on our website and look, you'll see a section under the data bank that says highlighted reports. And you can scroll through those. So then once those are done, that's all done on a local system here. We download those all and do all that work on a PC. We basically publish to the website so that the world can see the reports. We're basically we used to be kind of tardy with that. Sometimes we'd publish every couple of weeks. Sometimes it got as far as a month, but at this point in our existence, we are publishing pretty much every day and keeping the site very much up to date. We will make data available to researchers. We've worked with the RAND Corporation. We've actually worked with Aero. We've worked with other groups that just want to get raw data. So you can come to us and request raw data, and we'll evaluate your project and basically send you what you're looking for, if you agree to some conditions, which are basically not to redistribute it, keep it private, and credit us. We work with students. We get a lot of requests from students who are doing data analysis projects and come across the National UFO Reporting Center website and think it would be a great set of data to do their projects on. So we'll work with them. And then we do PR. We do interviews. Peter obviously has done scores of interviews throughout his career. He's kind of taken a step back from that lately. And I'm pretty much doing more of them. Things like podcasts. We've been on some of the national TV news shows. We also do cooperate with things like the Discovery Channel or Netflix might reach out to us and ask for permission to use some of our videos and some of the UFO documentaries that they produce. And we generally cooperate with that. And again, we try and basically, I think one of the major things that, differentiates NUFORC from some of the other either privately owned or, or nonprofit organizations is that we do just push the data out there. We don't hide it behind a paywall. We put it out for the world to see on our website. Some quick stats. At this point, we have about 190,000 case records in our database. Of those, 150,000 are out on the website. And you can scroll through, you can go in and look by country, by state, by shape, by time. You can pretty much go in and find whatever you're looking for, hopefully. Some of the statistics, the kind of trends of what we're seeing. About 25% of the reports that come in, we reject because of various reasons. I'm sure as UFO researchers, you've had your fair share of nonsense coming in reports, but still 75%, I think, is a good, most of the reports are from people who've seen something that they can't explain, and they're very sincere, and they're just looking either out of a sense of civic duty to report it somewhere, or they're looking for an explanation. They want to know, what did they see? It's for some of these people, it's a life-changing event to see some of these things. About 25% of them we can identify just off the bat by looking at the picture or the description. Again, those are things like, Starlink satellite trains, certainly rocket launches from Vandenberg Air Force Base here in California, or from Cape Canaveral, which are extremely dramatic. When there's a dramatic rocket launch, our report volume goes up that day, and we'll just get flooded with those, despite the fact that we have on our report form very clear instructions on what a rocket launch looks like, and not to report it. People still send those in. About 15% are the ones that we say, yeah, there's something really weird there. That's an interesting one. Those are the ones like I was describing, where something made some maneuvers that can't be explained by standard aircraft or anything human-made. And then about 5% are the ones that we really think are the most dramatic. These are the ones where people are seeing, huge triangles hovering over their head. They're seeing big, giant orbs of light, over the fence behind their house. Really dramatic stuff. Flying, so, a lot of the reports that come in, we still get a lot of reports from people, elderly people, telling us, who want to tell their stories about what they saw back in the 60s and 50s even, about flying saucers, when flying saucers were very common. So we get a lot of those reports. So as far as the 25% we can explain, I just got some brief kind of stats and graphs here that I could show you guys, but drones are the number one that we think. And in particular, with the big drone flap that we had here in the US back in December and November, I'll talk about that a little bit later. We see a lot of those. Rocket launches certainly get misidentified, aircrafts, balloons, Chinese lanterns, Starlink. Again, I think you guys are probably all familiar with these types of things that people send you pictures of or describe and are easily identified. But that's 25% of them. There's still the other 75% that are, we really don't know what they are, or you can't really make a snap judgment just based on the report that people sent in. We also do classify these by probability. Is it something we're certain of? Is it something that is probably what we think it is, or is it just a possibility? So we got 3 levels of classification. And then just some statistic on shapes, what we're seeing. And again, this is in some of the more recent reports from last year and this year, primarily orbs. Orbs are everywhere these days, from, small orbs and hovering, up in the sky, to huge things that are just extremely anomalous. Lights are very commonly reported, circles, but the triangles are still a big chunk of what people see. Discs are kind of falling out, and you can see some of the other shapes that we classify things into here. And there's certainly some overlap between these shapes, circles versus orbs versus ovals. It's sometimes a hard distinction to make, but those are the categories we sort things into. So what have we been up to lately? Over the last couple of years, we completely redid the website. I don't know if probably some of you used to look at our website back in the day, and it was a very text-based system. We were, actually one of the first organizations to have a website back in 95, 96, that time frame. So this has been completely redone. We've got a nice map that you can scroll around, interactive map. We've got a gallery where you can look at all the cool drawings people have sent us over the years, file reports, of course, make a donation. I love when people hit that button. We've also, this is new to us. We have investigators now. This is, this just started last year, really, where before that time frame, we would sometimes refer reports to MUFON or some of the other organizations that do investigations, but we're starting to do that on our own now. So these are primarily ex-MUFON FIs that have come to us and want to get involved, and they will call up the witness, do an interview, make calls to the local FAA office, airports, check flight radar, and try and come up with an explanation for what somebody saw. Now, they're certainly going after the most dramatic cases to start with, because it's still a limited set that we have the bandwidth to process. But and what they're finding for the most part is that, yeah, it looks like a genuine UFO that these people saw. Things that we're going to be tackling over the near term is, of course, we're trying to expand our investigative team. We're going to be working on some improved search capabilities on the website so that you can really do a full text search and search for anything based on any word. We're putting together a new computer where we can run some local large language models. And we're going to be trying to go back through our historical database and do some better classification of what we saw. A lot of the classifications that we've done are more recent, whereas in the past, a lot of the reports were just kind of published out to the website without such a, I guess, a thorough review or, analysis. We're talking about perhaps making a mobile app. And of course, I saw Luca out there. We're very interested in working with Luca on the USVAS project, which would be great, I think, for us to be able to feed our reports into that, get some analysis back on what the system can cross-reference as far as, air traffic, weather conditions, that kind of stuff. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about just some of the activity we've seen recently. I'm sure you've all heard about the drones that we're seeing, the New Jersey drones that were all over the news in the United States and probably were in the news in Europe as well. About November, we usually get, I'd say, 20 to 30 reports a day. Suddenly, I mean, almost overnight, it went to 100. So this was a real flop where there was really a lot of bizarre things going on all of a sudden. So our report volume quadrupled or tripled in a very short amount of time because people, not only in New Jersey, not over in the East Coast, but all over the country, really, and sometimes all over the world. And there were reports from Europe. We're seeing these anomalous drones, and some of the statistics and some of the characteristics of them, they were huge. There's described as the size of cars or SUVs. They were evasive. They did not want to be seen. They did not want to be captured. People had seen up to 50 at a time. There are literally thousands of sightings all over the place. They could stay up for 6 to 8 hours at a time. Some of the really interesting, unique things that were sent in some of the reports to us were people described a lot of these as silent. which, most drones which fly by, you can hear them making a whirring or a buzzing sound. And some of the people even described them as, it almost sounded like they were playing a recording of a drone. Like it didn't sound real. It sounded like it was coming out of a speaker, kind of implying that maybe it was something else masquerading as a drone. They were breaking the law by every drone in the United States is required to always be broadcasting what's called a remote ID, which is a signal that can be picked up and tells you who the drone operator is, what the drone model is, and what it's doing. None of that was happening. They were flying all over restricted airspace, the Picatinny Arsenal, Langley Air Force Base. And, prior to the big flap here, they were seen widely in the UK or some of the US air bases in the UK. There's no heat signature. One of the New Jersey police departments put some thermal imaging on these things and couldn't see them, which, if by the basic laws of thermodynamics, anything that has a motor in it should be producing some kind of heat, and they would interfere with car clocks and cell phones. So they were either not human made, or they were such advanced technology that nobody really knows where they came from. And if they were human made, the amount of money, manpower, coordination, secrecy it would take to have, conducted this type of operation is just mind-boggling. So it's, my personal opinion tends towards the not human hypothesis, especially when you consider that, a lot of these drones were seen in conjunction with orbs. We had reports of drones turning into orbs, orbs turning into drones, back and forth. And then sure enough, in January, everything died down and was basically forgotten about. It got out the news cycle, and now nobody's really talking about this anymore, which is similar to something that happened back in 2019, 20. There was a similar drone flap over Nebraska and Colorado where these things were seen again in massive numbers. I'm going to play you guys just a couple videos that are pretty dramatic of what some of these things were doing and what some of this was. This first one is came in from Canada, actually from London, which is just outside Toronto. So you should be able to see this.
Guys, there is a massive light above my house right now. Like, it looks like the bottom of a ship or something. It is huge. The video doesn't do it justice. It's a huge light. It's not the moon. And there are a bunch of small drones that are all floating just in the distance around it. I am so confused. It's shining down on my house. It's been there for probably, I don't know, since I noticed it, like 10 minutes now. I'm so confused. Anyone have any ideas?
So some pretty dramatic stuff. Let's go here. I'll just play another one for you here. There's one that shows.
Okay, so it's been sitting above my house. It was much closer before. Oops, that is my face. It is like a giant light. It's not the moon. It's like a spotlight being shone down on my house, and then there's like all these little tiny drones all around it. And it's just been sitting there on my house. Like, this is a light on the bottom of something. Like, it's not the moon, I promise. I'm so weirded out by this right now. It was like much, much closer to my house before.
And then there's one here that shows kind of the object flying away, which is, so this is the same person, the same camera. And she also said that this one interfered with her cell phone somewhat in her. So that's the object taking off. Okay. This is another case. I'm just going to share a couple of recent cases with you. This is one that came in from an air traffic controller, where a pilot reported a small, almost football-sized object flying past. This was actually a Homeland Security flight passing under his wing, and it actually showed on radar. And this was requested. We did a request through the Freedom of Information Act, and we're able to get the actual communications between the controller and the pilot. And we actually got the radar data, which is currently undergoing.
LA Center, Troy 2-1.
Troy 2-1, go ahead.
It's not weird, but I just had something pass underneath my wing, maybe like a football-sized object right underneath our wing.
Troy 2-1, Roger. Do you think it was a drone or?
I have no idea. I got my sensor operator looking for it on the camera right now. We'll see if we can find it. But it's like a dark gray cylindrical object, and it was probably the size of a football, and it passed maybe 10 feet under our right wing.
Troy 2-1, Roger. Thank you for the report. Keep me advised if you find anything else out.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll look for it now.
Okay, it's going to be a little bit of a break here. And then they're going to come back and say they've picked this thing up on radar about 60 miles away.
Sector 15, Bakersfield, VFR point out.
And, okay, correction. LA Center, Troy 2-1. We got something on air-to-air radar. We're trying to get visual on it.
Troy 2-1, Roger.
And LA Center 094 bearing from us for about 60 miles is where it is now.
Troy 2-1, say again.
So given that time frame, we did some calculations that object must have been moving much faster than any aircraft or any drone could possibly have gone to get 60 miles away in about a minute. So that's an interesting case. Let's go back here to the slideshow. Okay, since I've got a European audience here, we do get reports from Europe. And this is a little section of our map where it shows where they're coming in from. And primarily the UK, I think, mostly because we're probably better known in the UK. The Netherlands also has a lot of reports that come in to us. But they are coming in from all over the place. And I picked out a few here to show you guys what are some of the more dramatic ones. And I'll just step through these really quickly. Now, the reason we've got asterisks on some of these are the ones that have requested investigations. So I will put it out to the group that if anybody is interested in investigating any of these, because we don't have the manpower to go after European cases, feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to give you the contact information. The only thing we ask is that a report be filed with us with whatever you find out about the case. But these are definitely some interesting ones. So this is a triangle seen in April. This actually just came in a couple days ago. So this sounds like a pretty typical large triangle. Hopefully you guys can see this. I don't know if it's too small. But this was basically described it as a large mass and 3 red lights forming a huge triangle that was moving very silently and slowly. So pretty much a classic triangle case. Somebody took a video. I did try and reach out to see if we could get that, and I wasn't able to get a response on that. So that was from France. Here's Ireland. This was in March, on March 15th. And it's really nice when people do a sketch or give us a picture. But this was, he described it as a massive sphere-like dome that looked like metal, silent, ascending slowly and steady for 10 seconds with a massive white beam of light from the top, and then it ascended and disappeared behind a cloud. So kind of cool sighting there. Belgium from March again. Metallic object reflecting the city lights, smooth, seamless service, no visible wings, propellers, traditional aircraft. no noise. And what's interesting about this one, again, this had the classic electromagnetic interference. The phone stopped working, and it actually shut down his vehicle. So he's estimated the size is about 15 meters on a side, cigar shaped. Norway. Cylindrical shape like a long tube. And then again, it shot up really fast and disappeared in the sky. So a lot of, these really anomalous reports are objects that, defy basically the laws of acceleration and can instantaneously accelerate from standstill to, disappearing over the horizon in a matter of seconds. So again, this is, you can tell, people are emotionally affected by this. We just looked at each other kind of speechless, not sure what we witnessed. And then, whoops, going back to 2020, late 2024, this was a disc seen in the UK. And I'll just show you the drawings that these people said. It was kind of spinning around, changing colors, spinning while flying across the sky. And basically she says it looked like a classic flying saucer. In Portugal, we had a report of a USO from December where someone was out in a fishing boat. Something shaped like a pyramid emerged from the water and went upwards. Started out as a dark blue light forming underneath the water, moved about 100 meters from the boat, emerged like a submarine, and took off heading towards the sky. Looked like a pyramid. Some of these reports are pretty short. We do get, some very long descriptions and narratives of things, particularly when people are telling us stories from long ago. But even some of these shorter ones, you can tell, are pretty dramatic. This one is kind of nice because they supplied us a great drawing of what they saw. They saw an object that looked like this. Square object, silver gray in color with lights in each of the four corners, which varied in intensity. Surface was smooth, no visible seams, pattern of lights in the four corners. So that is from, again, November. So just a few months ago. And then here's one where somebody actually saw an entity. And again, this one, yeah, this is one that requested a investigation. They saw something hovering next to the shed outside, a metallic silver UFO. And there it looked like had a small dent in it, which looked then as if it melted away and left a small hole, and then a child-sized figure floated out and landed on the ground, began to bang on the shed before turning around and saw me. Big black eyes. So I think at this point, I do have a lot more slides, but I'm kind of 40 minutes into it. I am going to stop here. And maybe we can take some questions or hear what you guys think about this.